Spooksters, and welcome back to another episode here on Three Spooked Girls. My name is Jessica, and as always, I'm joined by my favorite ghoul friend, Tara.
Hey, Spooksters.
Today, we are doing our final installment of Judy Garland. We're going to be picking it up right before she passes and then go through kind of like afterwards and then some conspiracy theories. But before we do that, if you want to hang out with us on social media, you can do so by heading over to Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, X, whatever that's called, and Threads. Our handle is at Three Spooked Girls. Also, we have a wonderful Facebook group. It's called Three Spooked Girls Official. If you want to help support the show, you can do so by heading over to patreon.com/Three Spooked Girls. For little as $1, you get a bonus episode a month. Sometimes those are videos, sometimes they're just audio, but they're always fun. And they're not always, I would say they're not always like this. They're not always on a specific topic. We kind of have a little bit more fun.
The one from last month was a lot of fun. And I'm like, damn. I'm kind of like, I'm glad we did it for patrons, but I'm also kind of like, damn, that was such a good episode. I'm so sad that, like, if you want to listen to it. So basically, like, we just kind of told stories about, like, all nostalgia things with us as, like, our friendship and stuff. Yeah, that we haven't really ever talked about. So for as little as $1, you can get that episode. That video, it's on there. But yeah, we kind of like jump around and like we're just like, what do we want to talk about, kind of thing. So it's kind of like open for whatever. It does usually tie back in, obviously, but
sometimes not. Sometimes I'm like,
sometimes
let's talk about this random thing. And
so. Sometimes we've done a couple that were like trivia shows and stuff. So yeah, lots of cool stuff.
For sure. But with that, we're going to go ahead and dive right on in to Judy. Like Tara mentioned earlier, Mickey Deans, I shouldn't say earlier, in the last episode. It was earlier for me. It was literally just 5 minutes ago. Mickey Deans was Judy Garland's last husband, and they met, like she said, in 1966. He was delivering drugs to her hotel room in New York City. And basically, they had met through a mutual friend. She was staying at the St. Regis, and he was like, here are your drugs, which he said in his book, which we'll talk about his book in a minute. He was there to give Judy her medicine. So over the next 3 years, they would kind of date off and on. They would see each other and then not see each other. And I think a lot of that had to do with location because, as we know from the last episode, Judy had kind of moved to London. She owed the IRS a lot of money, and so she was taking on every possible gig she could get. But because of the fact that over the years she'd become deemed unreliable, she had to take whatever she could get. And London was like, we want Judy, bring on Judy. So they did, and she was there. And so in March of 1969, they got married, Judy and Mickey. And she wore like a silver silk dress, and it was like a whole thing. Liza Minnelli, who is her daughter, her first child, she said to her mom, this is just such a weird thing to say. She's like, I can't make it, Mama, but I promise I'll come to the next one.
It's having a sense of humor about it. This was her 5th marriage.
Yes. Only about 50 people attended her wedding. So it was small. According to her daughter, Lorna, who Tara talked a lot about in the last episode, she wrote a book, and the book is called Me and My Shadows, Living in the Legacy of Judy Garland. She talks about the fact that once she married Mickey, it was like kind of the final era of her life. Well, it was the final era of her life, but the prescription drugs came so much more heavily. That's kind of the era they knew she was in, and it was like, she said it was like she was dying in front of her. Yeah. Rosalind Wilder, who Tara also mentioned in the last episode, she was a production assistant on Talk of the Town, and she was actually present when she married Deans, said that he was a dreadful man, became her husband. I mean, if she put an advert in the newspaper for the most unsuitable person to take care of her, she wouldn't have gotten a better response. I don't know what possessed her. Well, I know what possessed her because he gave in to her and fed her all the things that she wanted. Tara did quote that in the last one, but I do feel like we need to reiterate it because that's what he was doing.
This is like, I was going to say, this is like that point that like bridges these two episodes together, is that quote.
And so Mickey was one of those guys who were like, I got myself a famous wife, and I'm going to get myself a famous wife career. Basically, he wanted to get a documentary done about her. He wanted to get basically franchise her movies, get like a bunch of new ones, kind of like Judy Garland movie theaters type thing, like her dad had done. Like he had movie theaters, but like do chains of them, and also do like a bunch of merchandising. And that actually would never come to fruition because we're going to jump ahead to June 22nd, 1969. Mickey and Judy were like in the day before, Mickey had left. Basically, they were in their little flat in London. He comes home the morning of the 22nd, and he's just like in the and he's like, where flat apartment. He's like, where the fuck is she? And I guess somebody like called for her. He was like calling, like he was like, Judy, the phone's for you. And she didn't get out of bed and come. So then he like went into their room, and the bathroom door was locked. And so he supposedly broke down the door. I'm saying allegedly because I don't know. He said that she was like slumped over the toilet, like her head was in the toilet. And others say that her head was like propped up on her hands. So like I'm assuming other people who were like the coroner or whatnot.
Yeah.
There was an investigation into Judy's death because she's a famous figure, and of course people want to know, but also because like, you know, it seems a little suspicious that her husband went away and then came back and found her dead. The coroner's name was Gavin Thurston, and he said that the cause of death was an unconscious overdose of barbiturates. And when they tested her blood after her death, it was the equivalent of 10 1.5 grains, which is 95 milligrams of Seconal. I see your eyebrow. Right.
Yeah, my eyebrows are like all the way up.
All the way up.
As far as they can go.
Right. According to GoodRx, Seconal or secobarbital is a sleep medication that belongs to a group of medications known as barbiturates. Barbiturates help you relax and promote sleepiness. Like Seconal would like, I know that in like kind of like older movies, people will be like, oh my God, I need a Seconal. Like it's like they're stressed out. And so like they say it. But if you don't know what it is, well, we'll talk about it a little more because I feel like it's important to understand what kind of drugs Judy was doing to see what it should do. Like, so Seconal should only be used, according to GoodRx, should only be used for a short period of time as it has a risk of habit forming and addictive. If Seconal is a desirable drug for recreation because it gives a pleasure inducing effects. So it's like the fun highs. Obviously, we understand how drug use works. Like over time, you build up tolerances, and the pleasure effect doesn't come right away. So you do more, which is how we see addiction happen. And they say with this particular drug, overdose is very likely because you just keep chasing it. This would also cause severe psychological and physical dependencies that can develop over a lot, like a elongated use. Basically, signs of them would include strained personal relationships, neglected self-care, anxiety, emotional instability, poor memory, restlessness, impaired cognitive functioning, which kind of sounds like that's what she was going through. Like, I'm sure like one of the reasons why she couldn't get to some place on time, maybe she forgot. Maybe like she had a lot of anxiety and couldn't get someplace. Like there's a lot. Tara mentioned her ex-husband, Sydney, left. They were married for like 12, 13 years. Like
11.
I've seen like 2 dates. That's why. Like I had the dates that you had in the last one, and then I also had like 1952 to 1965. So I was like, I don't know. Maybe they were together for the 11, and then it was like took a couple years
Because
to
like
divorce.
the divorce ended around that time.
Sense. He basically said that she was addicted to the drug the entire time that he knew her, also before. So we're talking about like 20 years of the use of Seconal. When the autopsy was done, they said that it had been unintentional. There's no evidence that she had intended to kill herself. Judy's autopsy showed no inflammation of the stomach lining and no drug in her stomach line, like was in there. So there's no residue, which indicated that she had ingested it over a long period of time rather than somebody had just like shoved a bunch of pills in her mouth, because that would have left things in her stomach. So on her death certificate, it says accidental. Supporting for the case of accidental is that she had a prescription of like 25 Seconals and like half of them were gone. And then she also had a second bottle that was there, and it was unopened, and it had 100 of them in there. So she was like,
oh my God.
Judy was ready to go at any time. But because Judy was so high profile, they brought in a specialist. Kind of what he was saying was he was actually kind of surprised she was still alive. Like up until the point she was, because he said, quote, she was living on borrowed time and she had cirrhosis like of her liver. I think it's of the liver, and she did have hepatitis. So that was like something that was a thing. A lot of people were like, they didn't really like believe the second autopsy with her, but like, there's no way that her kidneys weren't fucking damaged.
Yeah.
There was just like no way, because like 40 years of drug usage, like she started popping pills when she was little. Like her
Yeah,
mom
she's
was
like
forcing that shit on her. And basically, cirrhosis is severe scarring of the liver. This condition can be caused by many usage, or many, or not many, I should be a couple of forms, which is hepatitis, which we know she had, and then
Mhm.
2, chronic alcoholism. And we know that she was hospitalized in 1959 for hepatitis. When she was hospitalized, they said that they drained several quarts of fluid from her body, and then she
Mhm.
was released, and she was severe. This is in 1959. She was extremely weak. They basically told her that she had about 5 years to live, that she was terminal, and they were like,
Damn.
you're not going to be able to perform again. You're basically going to be an invalid. I thought it was interesting of when they asked her how she felt about it. She said she was greatly relieved and that the pressure was off for the first time in my life. That's where she's at. She's like, oh my God, I don't have to perform. They can't make me perform
Mhm.
because I'm sick. And then she, I would say, unfortunately, like
Yeah.
they she got better, and then they were like, perform. So with the autopsies completed, they were like, okay, let's move on to the funeral portion of it. And they wanted to have her funeral in New York City. So she was embalmed and then put into her funeral clothes, which was the gray silk gown that she wore at her wedding to Mickey, and
Yeah.
they transported her back to New York. So her body arrived at the Franklin E. Campbell Funeral Chapel in Manhattan on June 26, 1969. So just a few days later, the chapel remained open overnight, like a vigil, and over 20,000 people came to pay their respects. On June 27th, 1969, Judy's actual service was held. About 200 people were in attendance. The press and public were barred, but that didn't stop 1,500 other people from being like outside of basically the chapel and like
Yeah, a lot of
waiting.
the gays went.
It was an Episcopalian service, which was led by the Reverend Peter Delaney of St. Marylebone? I don't know how to say his name. I apologize.
Mhm.
And he was actually the one who married Mickey and Judy like a few months earlier. The service didn't take that long. It was about a 20-minute like service part, like the speaking.
Mhm.
And then there
Yeah.
was several songs that were played, and they read the passage of 1 Corinthians 13, which, if you know anything about the Bible, it's the love chapter. It basically is like, love is patient, love is kind. Jack French, Judy's musical accompaniment. I don't know how to say this word right. Accompany the guy who accompanied her while she was performing. There we go. This word was not going to come out of my mouth. Um,
Oh. I'm gonna
he
have to leave all of that for that to
You need
make
to.
sense.
Yeah, you're gonna have to. The whole thing, it's fine. Uh, at the funeral, he played the organ and he played "Here's to Us," and then
Mhm.
they ended the service by playing like what a lot of people play at the end of funerals, which is the Battle Hymn of the Republic. Which I was like, I don't even know the words. Like, if you asked me to sing that song, I'd be like, I don't know. Where's
Yeah.
a hymnal? According to an article from the New York Times, Lauren Bacall, Alan King, Betty Comden, and Adolph Green, Judy Marcer, Paul Wine, Fred Ebb. I don't know who any of these people are, but they were like listing them like they were big shots. And I was like, cool.
Someone might know.
Yeah, they were just saying that. And but the person who wrote Somewhere Over the Rainbow
Uh-huh.
actually did come to her service.
Oh, wow.
So I
Okay.
think his name was Harold Arlen. All of her children attended, and so did Sid. And obviously, Mickey attended. James Mason, who was her Star is Born co star, actually gave the eulogy at her funeral
Oh.
and said Judy's great gift was that she could wring tears out of the hearts of rocks. She gave so richly and so generously that there was no currency in which to repay her. That's really sweet.
Yeah, I love that. Aw.
Apparently, one of her co-stars from The Wizard of Oz, Roy Bolger, said that she was just like plain worn out. I mean, drug usage over like 30 plus, almost 40 years, that ages your body.
Oh, yeah, people said it aged her like you know, scientifically, they're like, it aged her 20 years, which it's like looking at her too. I didn't even realize she was as young as she was until we started
Right.
looking into it.
Tara and I had this conversation. She was like, "No, she died super young." She was like 20 or she was like 47. And I was like, "No, she had to be in her 60s." And then I looked it up and I was like, "Okay, you were right." Because I mean, she was 47.
Yeah.
It was just really tragic. And unfortunately, it really showed because like nobody was
Mhm.
she didn't have people around her who were taking care of her. So after the funeral service, under a blanket of yellow roses, she was interned into a crypt in the community mausoleum of Ferncliff Cemetery in Hartsdale, New York, which is about 25 miles away from Midtown Manhattan. It was said that Mickey Rooney went
Mhm.
to the funeral chapel the night before, but he did not attend the funeral, or the actual funeral proper, which I get. When my mom died, I remember a friend of hers like came to the viewing and then like couldn't stay. So like
Mhm.
I could see like that could have eased, like Mickey Rooney died a few years ago. He was really old. Like he could
Yeah.
have, I mean, I'm sure that was probably like that could have been me. Now we're going to talk about Judy's money troubles. So when Judy passed away, her estate was valued at $40,000 at the time of her death, which in 2023 equivalency is 250,000. And you're probably like, what the fuck?
Whoa.
She made millions of dollars. Like I mentioned in Tara's episode, Judy didn't pay taxes.
No.
I just don't know. Did people just not know she needed to pay taxes? I don't understand. And she owed at the time of her death $4 million
Oh my
to
God.
the IRS, which in today's money is $33 million.
Oh my God. But yeah, if you never paid them your whole career and you're making all this money, like, oof,
Right.
rough.
So
Yeah.
the IRS seized her home shortly after she died because she didn't own a home. It came down to years of criminal mismanagement. If this had been today, like she could have Kelly Clarkson and like sued her ex-husband and people from who
Mhm.
managed her. Obviously, like she couldn't sue Ethel because Ethel had died, but like if she had gone at it criminally, she might have
Mhm.
been able to get herself out of this hole. So they sold off everything they sold off everything they could. So basically, due to her management like embezzling from her, she had no money. And this also meant that she didn't have very many friends and family. That's why she was like working where she worked, because she needed this money. And so basically, because she owed all this money to the IRS, she was like, I gotta figure some shit out. But thank God she did have some good friends. And one of her
Mhm.
very good friends, Mr. Frank Sinatra, helps her out. Now, you might be thinking, why the fuck is Frank Sinatra helping Judy Garland out? Well, there's a theory to that. The theory is because Frank literally helped Liza pay this off because it fell to Liza to pay it off. And
Oh,
because she's,
okay.
yeah. And so he basically helped and he paid for the funeral and he helped pay this stuff off. So
Hmm.
while Judy was married to Manelli, her first husband, she would
Not her first
have
husband.
oh no, sorry. You're right.
Second.
Her second husband. While she was married to Liza's dad, let's put it that way.
Yeah.
She would have secret rendezvous with Frank Sinatra in the Hamptons. I
Ooh,
like that you say this
spicy.
like you didn't know. I'm actually going to read a letter. With Manelli, they had a rendezvous. And then again, when she was with Sid, they got together. And this was like during one of his separations with Ava Gardner. So this is
Mhm.
a letter that Judy wrote to Frank. It said, "My darling, my sudden departure is a complete surprise to me. I am deeply disappointed to miss our Monday and Tuesday date. However, it's imperative that I reach Boston by Sunday. I shall be at the Ritz-Carlton under the name of Mrs. Vincent Minnelli or in the care of Carlton Alslop. You said today that you have been negligent, but darling, it is so unimportant compared to the great moments of happiness you've given me. I shan't forget the hours we've spent together. Ever. Let me know how everything goes on this trip. In the meantime, take good care of yourself, be happy, and have lots of fun and laughs. And for God's sake, keep those wheels in your little old head down to a minimum. Drop me a line if you can, because it cheers me up a great deal. I hope I talk to you tomorrow, but I wanted to write this in case we miss connections. Even if we do reach one another, I will send it anyway. it's getting late, so I'm going to wash up, get my money, etc. Love the get my money. Goodbye, my darling. I hope we see each other soon. Please don't forget about me. Think about me because I shall be thinking about you. Always, Judy. It's like kind of makes me sad because like I'm like, well, that would have been a really great love story. Could you
Yeah.
imagine Judy Garland and Frank Sinatra?
Oh my God.
Flash forward to 1978. So obviously she has been deceased for
Mhm.
a bit. Her ex-husband Sid and their daughter Lorna and their son Joey basically sell off a section, like because they're still paying shit off. So they're
Yeah.
selling off things. It was about 500 items ranging from copper cookware to musical arrangements, and they raised about in today's worth it would be $920,000. So that's good. Just so that everyone knows, in case like you are like, oh, I'm going to be in New York. I want to see Judy. She's not there anymore. In January of 2017, she was reinterred in the Hollywood Forever Cemetery in Los Angeles because that's where her children wanted her to be. I did the section. It's called I named it "Understanding Her Health and Her Drug Ravaged Body."
Oh,
I gave
yes.
it a fun title. According to Stevie Phillips, Judy's manager from 1961 to 1964, Judy partied hard. There was a Caribbean vacation where they were, like she said, basically Judy was like naked the whole time and like, which I'm like, okay, live your best life. Like,
Yeah.
we see other celebrities doing something very similar. But apparently at one point in time, she went out onto her balcony and there was like a bunch of like Stevie referred to them as longshoremen. And
Uh-huh.
Judy was basically naked standing out there singing to them. And she was singing Over the Rainbow. And I was
I love
like,
this for her.
get it, Judy. Apparently, one time she broke her compact mirror.
Mm.
And when people were like, Judy, what the hell? She like cut her face with it because she was
Oh my God.
fucking high.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Apparently, there was one time where she passed out in her house. They like called someone to like come get her. And I say fake passed out. Like she literally fake passed out in her house. And then the paramedics like picked her off a little too roughly. Apparently, she jumped off the gurney and screamed, "How dare you fucking morons handle me like a fucking side of beef?" And I was like, oh God. I don't know if this is true. This is just her manager telling the
Oh
story.
my gosh. Can it be
Um,
true?
yeah,
That's funny.
I know. I'm like, oh my God. Can you imagine? You're partying so hard. You're like, I just want a break. I need a break from partying. I'm gonna go to the hospital. And you're like, damn it, you guys are jerks. There's another time where like she was at the Sahara Hotel in Vegas in
Mhm.
like 1962. She wasn't like doing as good because we know she's lost all the contracts and things like that. But she was doing like a 2-week stint, so they put her
Mhm.
up in like a penthouse suite. Like she'd have a 10 p.m. show and that would end, and basically she would be like on drugs, she'd be, she'd popping pills, she'd be
Yeah.
drinking, and then they would go out and party until like 8 a.m. in the morning where they would like end up at like a restaurant having steak and eggs, which I was like, I've had those nights. I mean, I've never had steak and eggs, but now I kind of wish I had. I kind of want to call it pulling a Judy. Like where
Yeah.
you end the night with steak and eggs. um and her manager said, or she basically would be like, let's go upstairs and play gin rummy. And while she would be playing, she would take like 20 to 30 pills. I guess one game night that they were playing, Judy got up. She was super high. And she
Mhm.
basically like passed out. She just fell face first into the corner of a coffee table. She's like cut her lip. Basically glass has like gone through her like nostril. It is like grazed the spot above her like eye, and basically she's bleeding. And Stevie says she ran over and she was like, she bent over, just she's like, I bent over in a panic to see if she was breathing, way too scared to move or even touch her, which I want to say, Stevie, I think you made the right move by not moving her because she has glass. You could have done more damage. She said, nevertheless, I tried to take her pulse and I was so scared I could feel nothing. I had no idea if she was alive or if she was dead or alive. They don't call 911, which is, I'm like, okay, that's not the
Mm.
choice we should have made. um,
Right.
they call the Sahara's entertainment director, Stan Irwin, and apparently he is, quote, an expert in destructive ways of addicts addictive
Mm.
performers. So he basically brings a doctor. Like there's a doctor on site, so he brings the doctor. So I was like, okay, that's probably was faster than calling 911 actually. And so the doctor gets up there and examines, and he's like, oh, Judy's asleep. Like she's breathing fine. She's good.
Oh.
She's just out. And so basically they had to like say that she had like a vocal strain. There's a couple of times that Judy basically like would come out into the living room when they were all talking, and if they weren't like paying it, this is what someone is saying, if she wasn't
Mhm.
paying attention to her, she would like self-harm with a knife. There was one time like she came out with a knife and was like pointing it out and like cut
Oh
herself.
my god.
Yeah. I mean, I think this Judy, we know that Judy was extremely troubled. Like, and I think the people in her life were just like, she was kind of this like marionette that they could like throw some pills at like a wind-up doll and see what she would do. And I
Mm.
don't think she had someone in her life going, you know what, maybe Judy should go back to her room and get a solid 12 hours of sleep. I think tomorrow she should go to the spa. I think she should get her hair done. Like these weren't people in her life. And during that time frame, there were a lot of stars that just didn't happen for. And it
Yeah.
seemed like Vegas is a big crux of it. Apparently, Judy also, when she would get high, she might also have gotten a little frisky with
Oh.
Stevie, and Stevie is a woman. Reiterate
Okay.
if I said that. Basically, she had kind of scooted over and they were close to each other, but it's like of the backseat of a limo. Like, depending on the size of the limo, it could be like small. Something happened, and Judy put her hand on her knee, which didn't seem unusual. You know, if
Mhm.
you're high, you might like reach out. Like, I know, like, I'll be honest, when I've been high, sometimes I have to reach out and touch someone to make sure that I'm grounded. And this could have been
Yeah.
Judy grounding herself. But apparently, the car lurched forward and Judy's hand went backwards, which brought it to her crotch. And apparently,
Oh.
Judy decided that that was the time she was going to explore the female anatomy.
Oh.
Yeah. Stevie was like, I was married and I was straight and I didn't know what to do. So I just sat there for a second. And then she's like, I just took her hand and like moved it over and was like, no, no, you keep your hand to yourself and I'll keep my hand to myself. She was like, I didn't want to like reject her. I wanted to
Yeah.
reject her, but I didn't want to reject her because if I did, like I could lose my job. You know, she's like,
Mm.
I'm a straight woman. I don't want to sleep with a woman. And I was like, I get that. Like, that's not your thing. You shouldn't force anyone to do anything they don't want to do. So, star or not. But I just think that Judy was probably way too high and probably was just like, oh, what's going on now? And I don't even know if this story is true. So,
Right, right. Yeah. Oh my god. Okay. The dude that I mentioned she was like with and divorced within 6 months,
mhm.
he had an affair with Liza's husband, Peter Allen.
Dang. Well, that would be why they weren't married very long.
Yeah, because he like swooped in and I guess, I don't know, did what they did. Jesus, like what the fuck? But I can't believe I forgot to fucking mention that. Oh,
It's like this
sorry.
is feeling very Cyrus family.
Oh my god. Ew, let's oh my god.
Stevie, right? So she basically stopped working with Judy like before, like a few years before she died. Ironically, lived like literally a block away
Mhm.
from the chapel, and she said she tried to go to her service, but she just couldn't do it. It was, like, too much for her, which I get, like, that would be a lot. Like, this
Yeah.
person that you basically saw, like, being self-destructive suddenly, like, is now dead, which is the thing you've been probably would spent years trying to prevent, which I think is probably why they had a production assistant with her all the time because they were like,
Yeah.
"Somebody needs to watch Judy." Tara mentioned earlier that Judy attempted to, unalive herself several times. One of the times, apparently, Sid wrote an autobiography yeah, an autobiography biography kind of thing about their lives.
Mhm.
And he said that like one time they were like in their hotel room and Judy walked out and she was wearing this like pretty little white negligee. And then she just like showed him her wrists, was like, look what I did. I mean, this woman was like, she was either high or coming down, and her brain chemistry was not, it was not all together, which,
Yeah.
yeah, just,
Just like decades and decades of it.
mhm. He basically tried to hide all of like her attempts and things like that. And he said also like he would try to like clean out her drugs and stuff like that periodically.
Mhm.
He said that he would find like pill bottles like hidden in her cigarette like cartons and
Mhm.
that. he would like go into her like closet and like look in her clothes hamper, and it would be like filled with like alcohol, like empty
Mm.
bottles that she was hiding. He also got some criticism because apparently in 1993 he tried to sell her Oscar, but like give
What?
it to her children. So, but basically he said whatever bad things happened, you don't fall out of love with someone like her. This was an interview he gave in 2001. All I know is that everyone tried to save a woman who was breaking apart. I did. I know that I did the best I could, and it still wasn't enough. Okay, so if you know me, you know my favorite part of any kind of these things is the conspiracy. Now, there's
Yeah.
one big conspiracy that runs through this, which is that Mickey did it.
Mhm.
I'm just gonna be honest. So basically, a lot of people think that she was murdered and that she wasn't a victim of accidental overdose. According to Sid's book, which is called Judy and I, My Life with Judy Garland, he basically talks about how the fact that she was such a habitual like user of Seconal that she would tell him like, do not leave pills out for me because I'll just take them. Like only give me the amount I'm supposed to take because if I have
Mm.
access to them, I will just keep popping them. And she
Yeah.
was like, I don't have self-control. As I mentioned earlier, we talked about like with Stevie Phillips, like Judy didn't have self-control. Like she went hard
Mhm.
all of the time. So basically, the night that she died, according to a PI that looked into Judy's murder, and I don't know who this PI is because the article did not name this source.
Right.
Um,
Uh-huh.
Judy or Mickey had left for the evening and left out 30 to 40 Seconal pills for her. Mhm. And the theory is that Mickey left out the pills, waited for her to die, like, in
Mm.
bed,
Mhm.
right? Over,
And
like,
then just under.
and then
Oh.
took her to the bathroom. Mind you, she was taking these pills while drinking.
Right.
Just took her and put her in the bathroom. According to the PI, the source says Judy hardly weighed a thing when she was at that age. So it would have been easy for him to lift her body and carry her into the bathroom. He placed her on the bathroom toilet and pushed her head forward and down. He knew that she was in an unconscious state and that it was just a matter of time before she suffocated. To cover his tracks, Mickey left the house and didn't return until the morning, which is factual. He left the house and didn't return till morning. So but he was a
Mhm.
nightclub manager, so, that kind of makes sense that you would go to a nightclub. Again, I
Mhm.
wanna say all of this is a legend. I have 0 proof.
Yes.
I am just
You
reporting what
said
I have
theories.
theories, conspiracy theories. It was basically, like I said earlier, that when Judy got a phone call, that's when, Mickey tried to wake her up, and she wasn't there, so then he, like, busted down the door. Sid believes that Mickey killed Judy. I honestly think, like, in this conspiracy theory of this, it kind of tracks in the fact that, like, I think Mickey thought he was getting this, like, this money train, and I think
Yeah.
he probably thought there was more money in her being dead than alive, not realizing that how much money problems she had and that she owed the IRS $4 million.
Yeah.
Mickey died in 2003 at the age of
Mhm.
68, and he basically was like, I didn't do it. It was an accidental overdose. So it wasn't suicide, but it was just an accidental. PI basically is like, Judy was like trying to make a comeback. And it was kind of like, it wasn't on the up and up, but like she just had the show that went well. And so, she was looking for her next comeback. But what's really fucking interesting about Mickey, and this is
Mhm.
factual because this came from Lorna, who is Judy's daughter, after the funeral, the day of the funeral, when they're like going to her fucking like site, right?
Mhm.
Mickey makes them stop off at a Manhattan office. And basically, when they go inside, I don't know why, like, he brought Lorna inside. And basically, he was pitching a book about Judy. Judy died on the 22nd. It is now the 27th. So this
Mm.
dude has had 5 days and he's like, I'm going to pitch it. He set up a fucking meeting.
Yeah.
And he ultimately would go on to write a book. It's called Weep No More, My Lady. But Lorna says, please don't buy it. And so I
Nope.
say, please don't buy it.
Yeah. No, no.
So here's like a really interesting thing. I went down this whole like rabbit hole of this, and then I was like, it's not really relevant to the story. But basically, at one point in time in 1983, Mickey was
Mhm.
actually suspected of murdering his boss.
Oh, shit.
He was like completely like, they were like, it wasn't him, but like it was a
Oh.
guy by the name of Roy Radden. And he was like, he actually kind of came up through the kind of the same thing. Like he was in LA, he was like part of vaudeville, that kind of shit. And then
Wow.
essentially somebody knocked him off and They thought it was Mickey for a minute, but it's not.
Damn, that's crazy.
The last thing is, we've talked a lot about how Judy is the gay icon.
Mhm.
And I actually did not know this, but there was a article in Time magazine in June of 2019,
Mhm.
and it basically was pointing to the fact that Judy Garland, her service was the 27th, and in the early mornings of June 28th is when the Stonewall riots happened in New York City, in the Greenwich Village in New York. And if you don't know this, the story is basically there was a place in New York City called the Stonewall Inn, and it was basically like a gay club, and it was raided, and patrons of the bar fought back. And basically what I kind of was like learning, there were some people who were saying like, well, no, you can't like attribute it to Judy, but there was also this like sudden, like people were out celebrating her life. And then
Yeah.
they were basically like, being told like they were being rounded up. They were, there was a raid on the bar, and they fought back. And Stonewall is literally square one of
Mhm.
gay rights. And it does make sense that a community who saw her as their icon would fight back in celebrating her. And
Mhm.
so I don't necessarily be like, it's because of Judy, but like, I would say it's because of the fact that they felt empowered by the support that she gave that community, for sure.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
when you really think about it today, I'm very grateful for the kind of the line of conversation that Judy had, because it was kind of the
Mhm.
first of them to come out and be like, who cares if they're gay?
Right.
Like, it
Mhm.
doesn't matter that that person is gay. It matters that they're a person. And that's how she saw that community. And at that time, that community was not allowed to be, because now I have a wonderful, beautiful best friend who is a lesbian and gets to live her life out in the world and be happy. So thank you,
Yeah, I
Judy.
don't yeah. Thanks, Judy. I don't have to say Shannon's my roommate.
That's true. So, yeah, no, it's weird in life how people impact other people and other things,
Mhm.
like, kind of accidentally, because I don't think Judy
Yeah.
set out to be any kind of, like, it kinda reminds me of, like, you remember, like, in Parks and Rec when Leslie Knope becomes, like, the gay icon in her community because she accidentally marries 2 gay
Yeah.
penguins? It's, like, the kind of the same
Yeah.
concept. It's, like, thank God for Judy Garland,
Mhm.
because there's so many people. And I mean, this country still has a long way to go when we're talking about gay rights, and June is almost here. And it's the time where we really start thinking about this, because it's Pride. The reason Pride is in June is because of the Stonewall riot. So
Mhm.
it's kind of like full circle in our life right now. And I'm grateful for the influences she had on that community, and that she gave them a voice to form a community.
Mhm.
And I just really wish someone had been in her life who had stood by her and went, you know what? She needs to detox. She needs to get off these drugs. Someone needs to push Ethel down a flight of stairs. Someone needs to get
Ethel
her.
was dead at this point.
No, but I mean, like,
Oh,
I'm
in
talking like
general, like, when
like
she
when
was
she
alive.
was
Yeah, yeah,
young, like
sorry.
when she was
Sorry,
young,
yeah.
like, right. I really hope Judy's first action in the afterlife is to punch Ethel in the face, because, like, Jesus, like,
Right. Ugh.
Ethel Ethel is 100% responsible for Judy's death, because of the fact that the first time she put a pill to her daughter's face and said, "Take this," she signed her death warrant, because it was saying to her, "I don't value you as a person. I value what you can bring me." And we see this, like, we just did the Quiet on the Set, and if you've listened to Jeanette McCurdy's book, like, when you're talking about Ethel, it was like, oh my god, this is like
Mhm.
her and
Similar.
Jeanette McCurdy's mom, basically, like, similar.
Besties. Mhm.
Yeah, but we hope you enjoyed learning more about Judy Garland's life. She had
Mhm.
a very interesting upbringing, and, the good thing is that Judy was so talented, and thank God she did make movies and did record herself, because now we can, like, introduce, like, our children to it, and
Mhm.
just, like, let people know, like, what an amazing talented woman she was. And then she gave us Liza Minnelli. who
Yeah.
turned out to, like, talk about a legacy. Liza became a gay icon, so it was, like,
Yeah.
family tradition, so I just yeah, I am struggling to wrap up this episode, but we will see you back here on our next one. So, bye, guys.
Bye.